to move on to a different subject, if I may. Mr. Trump, I was reading the submission you made to the inquiry where you detail your concerns about the proposed offshore wind development in Aberdeenshire. And you make a number of comments in this I'd like to draw to your attention. You say the Scottish Government has an obligation to honour its contracts, and you go on to say Scotland at the very highest ministerial level encouraged me with overwhelming promises, public statements and various offers to support. Can I ask you, what were these promises that were made to you? When were they made and who made them?
When I first came to Scotland, my mother, by the way, was born on the Isle of Lewis, so I know something about it. But when I first came to Scotland, I had an option to buy this piece of land. I was going to buy this piece of land, and I heard there was going to be a big wind farm built off the almost 2,000 acres of land that we're talking about. And I said, that's okay, but I'm not going to build there. I spoke to Jack McConnell at the time, who was your first minister, and there were people talking about putting, believe it or not, the dunes that I so cherish and we now call the Great Dunes of Scotland, that have gotten all of these awards and are getting all of these great awards. And we've been very, very careful environmentally. We've done a very environmentally sensitive job. But we were going to go, and we said, that's okay if you want to build it, because we're not going to build here. We're going to go to another place. We just won't buy this land. We'll go someplace else. And we actually had a great piece of land in Ireland. And it wasn't my first choice, but it was a great piece of land. And if you remember, and there was big hoopla, I was going to go and I was going to leave and I was going to build in Ireland because of the fact that the wind farm was going to be built fairly near our course in Scotland on the piece of land on which we built. And as Jack McConnell said, it won't be built. And his people were telling George or various of my people that it won't happen. They talked about the Ministry of Defense would never approve it because it had something to do with the radar. And they talked about the shipping lanes, especially because it's near Aberdeen. They said it won't happen. It was very prevalent for a short period of time, and then it totally disappeared. Based on that, nothing in writing, but based on that, I decided I'll go forward. In the meantime, Alex Salmond, when I discussed it with him toward the beginning, he poo-pooed it and said, you have a Ministry of Defense problem, you have all sorts of shipping lane problems. I wouldn't worry about that. And I continued to go forward. Now I've invested tens of millions of pounds. I've completed my site ahead of schedule. I've built something that is spectacular by even my enemies say the most spectacular and really good, going to be great for Scotland, going to be great for Aberdeen, going to be great for everything. So after I've invested this tremendous amount of money, all of a sudden this really obnoxious and ugly wind farm appears, which is worse than a wind farm because they're going to have all these different looking windmills up there. It's going to look like Disneyland, except a bad version of Disneyland. And so I felt betrayed because I invested my money. I invested my money based on statements that were made to me. And then I get a letter from Alex Salmond just a short time ago, April 12th. And in one of his parts of the letter, as I explained, the policies of one government do not bind its successor. So what he's saying is, well, if Jack told you that this isn't going to happen, or if people in his administration told you, we're not bound by it. Now, lots of very smart people with a lot of money are looking to invest in different parts of the world. When they see what happened to me and the way I've been treated, they're not going to be investing in Scotland. Because when you make the statement that just because one administration says something, well, I have to rely on that. If Jack McConnell says to me and his representatives say to us that that won't happen, and then it goes away, and then I build and invest all this money, and then it reemerges, I don't think that's fair to an investor.
Clearly this was a matter of great importance to you, that this development did not go ahead to affect your golf course.
By the way, if it went ahead, it was fine. I told them that. I was going to build in Ireland, and all of a sudden it disappeared.
The question, Mr. Trump, is if it was so important to you, why did you not seek something more than just a verbal assurance?
Well, I didn't think it was necessary because they talked about Ministry of Defense, and which, by the way, is totally opposed to the Vattenfall wind farm, as you know, the Ministry of Defense. And they also talked about the shipping lanes. And that's always been a big problem. And the Ministry of Defense has recently come out totally against the Vattenfall wind farm. So I feel very good about that. But I was told that a while ago. So I didn't feel it was necessary. And Alex Salmond mentioned that the same way. I didn't feel it was necessary. When they say Ministry of Defense is against it, what do I need? So what they did is they lured me in, I spent this money, and now I might regret it. And I think other people that want to invest in Scotland are watching me, and they're watching what happened, and I think they're going to say, I'm not going to invest in Scotland.
It has been suggested, Mr. Trump, that when you proposed this development back in 2006, 2007, we were in a different economic time. A development which at that time might have appeared to be economically viable might look different today, given the economic recession we've seen, and that really you change your mind about this development and all you're looking for is an excuse to withdraw, and this is just a face-saving exercise. How would you respond to that?
Well, even Alex Salmond was quoted today as that they're satisfied with what Mr. Trump did. He's in, I think the Times today quoted, that he's satisfied with what we've done. Look, I've invested tens of millions of pounds with no debt. I have no debt on the site. You can check. No mortgage, no financing, no nothing. I've invested, unlike most other projects that are going down the tubes, they're going bust. I've invested tens of millions of pounds into my close to 2,000-acre site on the North Sea. I've created something that's magnificent. I've created what some people and myself are considering the best golf course anywhere in the world. That's what I said I was going to do because we had the painting, we had the canvas to do it. I am looking forward to proceeding with the job. And I want to build a hotel. I want to build further. I don't want to stop. We're a very rich organization. We're a very substantial organization. This is a very small job for me. This is not a big job. It's an important job. My mother was born in Scotland, and it's an important job for me, but it's not a big job for me. You know that as soon as this horrendous idea of these 11 all different colors, different styles, different looks, windmills are terminated 1 mile. Oh, one other thing. Now it's 1 mile away. When I first got involved, they were 10 miles away. Then they were 3 miles away. Now it's 1 mile away. And as this gentleman told me a little while ago, 1 mile isn't even really a sea wind. It's really on the coast. It's really on land. Because 1 mile, this is the equivalent of a 70-story building, 11 of them, and each one different. So there's not a man or woman sitting on this council that if they were in my position, they got lured in to make an investment. I made an investment because of the beauty of the site and the beauty of the views and all of those things. And then after I've spent my money, they come and they announce this atrocious plan. And I just have to tell you one other thing. Wind is not a good form of energy, and it doesn't work without subsidy. So I think this is just an observation that I make as a businessman that's done well. I think you have to be very careful, because if the UK ever takes away your subsidy, you have got some major problems on your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. I've got other members who want to come in on this line of questioning. Just one final question, which I think is only fair to put to you, and that is, as I'm sure you're aware, both Jack McConnell, now Lord McConnell, and the current First Minister, Mr. Salmond, deny that they ever gave you these assurances.
Well, I've heard that, and I know Mr. Salmond's denying other things today on the front page not related to this particular
But why should we believe you and not believe them?
So, you know, I mean, because, hey, he is denying other things today. He's denying everything. Obviously, they even said that I wanted windmills. You know, somebody came out and said, who would want them? I never wanted them. I was always opposed to them. Now, they asked me if I'd write a letter in appropriate locations. Yeah, if they want to put them in industrial areas, that's fine. I think they're bad only because you're going to lose money. I believe in hydro. I think hydro for Scotland is great. I think you should expand your hydro energy. I think wave technology, great. I think you should expand. That's what you should be doing. But I think you're going to destroy your coastline. You're going to destroy. Jack McConnell told me that. Alex Salmond told me, he scoffed at the idea. At a dinner we had in New York. We were in New York at a dinner. By the way, Mr. Suriel was there.
I was there.
We had a dinner. We talked for hours. We were at a dinner. We talked about windmills. Who would believe we didn't talk about windmills? When I originally bought the site, when I heard that windmills were going to be there, I would have built in Ireland. Very simple.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Harvey.
Thank you, Convener. Mr. Trump, you say you were given these assurances. The former and current First Ministers say that that wasn't the case. This committee can't really resolve that. It's one person's word against another. But let's just, I'd like to probe, we know you don't like the project, the wind project. We know that. But what you've said to us today, I'd like to probe a little bit further. You said you had the option to buy the land. You heard there would be the development. And I think the phrase you used was, we said we just won't buy this land and it won't be built. And then you were given the assurances about the European Offshore Wind Deployment Centre.
Disappeared amazingly because they wanted my money. They wanted me to invest in Scotland, which is the right thing.
Can I just
Yes.
finish? And then after you were given that assurance, you bought the land.
Yes.
Well, the Registers of Scotland document shows that you had date of entry on the land in January, I believe, 2006. In February 2006, you were seeking advice from Scottish Development International about the wind farm, which you described as a deal killer, by which time you had already acquired the bulk of the land for £4.5 million. And later on that month as well, I think on the 21st of February 2006, SDI, following discussions with yourselves, you sent an email saying that our client, whose name must remain confidential about this stage, is about to conclude within the next few days a deal on a tourism leisure resort of international standing. Now, in the next few days, after 21st of February, you had already bought the land.
I was given assurances prior to my buying the land, and frankly,
Prior to January 2006?
Yes, I was given.
When?
I don't know. I mean, you're talking about many years ago. But I was given assurances to a point where I felt I could go ahead and buy the land because I didn't think the wind was going to happen. I didn't think that the wind farm was going to happen by the time I bought the land.
And so why, following discussions with yourselves, did SDI describe the wind farm as a deal killer?
I don't know. Maybe it was continuing onward a little bit, but I felt confident. By the time I bought the land, I felt confident that the wind farm was not going to happen. I felt it for a lot of different reasons, including I had heard that the Ministry of Defense was against it, which meant a lot to me. But I had felt quite confident by the time I bought the land that the wind farms were not going to happen.
You're a wealthy enough man to be able to afford a lawyer to explain to you that it would have been completely outrageous and improper for a First Minister to give such a future assurance about a planning application or an energy
I don't think so at all.
Which didn't exist.
I don't think so at all. I think that what the First Minister wanted to do, and frankly, Alex Salmond wanted me very much to invest in Scotland also, for a lot of reasons, and good reasons. That's not bad reasons, that's good reasons. They want me to put hundreds of
legal obligations.
Excuse me. They want me to put hundreds of millions of pounds into Scotland. What isn't right is to get them to do something and then go against their word. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to come in here. I think this line of questioning is absolutely ludicrous. This isn't the Trump inquiry. It's to do with renewable energy and the government's targets. And these attacks on Mr. Trump are completely out of order.
The reason these questions have come up, Mr. Lang, is because these comments were made in Mr. Trump's submission to the committee, and therefore it's quite legitimate for the committee to raise questions about them. But I don't want to dwell on this. I know Mr. Macmillan wants to come in with a brief question, and if I have time, I'll allow Maureen Watt with a brief question on this.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Trump, it's regarding the written evidence. On page 6, paragraph 2, the final sentence, you say...